Astral Piercer had its ground bounce height on counter hit increased. Before, this is about the height that you would get from it. Not really much to do here in the previous patch. This is what the counter hit launch looks like now. As you can see, it's pretty easy to get a follow-up here now. This is nice because if you're close enough to Anre and he's able to react to your fireball, he's actually going to get meaningful damage now.
Great.
The forward unique follow-up to Spiral Spear, Grand Haste, also saw some buffs. The travel startup is reduced, the speed and distance traveled has increased, and the distance covered by the minimum active frames has also been increased. From full screen, this is about how far you can go now with it. You get into close slash range. And this was the old range. You were at far slash distance before. The air and ground versions of Ultimate Mantra Wheel now causes a wall bounce.
Great.
This gives him a lot of combo utility they didn't have before with these moves. This namely helps his mid-screen to corner extensions because before, if you were in the corner, you got combos off of these anyway.
Great.
Each version of Fleeting Spark, his down special, had various changes to them, so we'll go through them one by one. This is how the light version used to behave. This is how it behaves now. It launches the opponent on hit now with a little extra knockback as well to push them farther to the corner. There's some extra stun frames when parrying as well. Not sure if that's just a visual change to sell the point that you made this hit or if it actually serves a functional purpose. The travel distance and speed when parrying from a long distance has also been increased, probably to make it so it's more reliable against long-range attacks. On the medium version, the launch height has been increased and it now causes a wall bounce. It's a pretty decent corner carry there. Now, if you're able to get this off in the corner, you're going to get a full combo for it. This is how it used to behave. Fairly comparable, I would say, overall. And no combo in the corner. The heavy version effectively inherits all the changes that the other two versions has. The lateral knockback and height have been increased on its second hit. There's a wall bounce down this second hit, except when it's parrying. And then there's also more stun frames when the parrying happens, and the travel speed and distance when used at a distance have increased. Let's look at how it behaved before. Let's see how it looks now. Dramatically more corner carry, as we can see. Again, you're going to get the wall bounce there, so there's potential combo utility here. But on a successful parry, you don't get that one. So the medium version has an identity of actually being used to parry against somebody, while there's some other functions for the EX version, namely against an airborne opponent. Anre will appreciate this to stabilize anti-air routes near the corner. Of course, anytime Anre also launches the opponent in a combo, he'll be able to use this by linking into it after hitting the opponent with a 2H to get further damage and stabilize the combo route. That's just a rudimentary idea for it. Forcing me to make her appearance several characters before I'm actually ready to get to her is Near, because the next change to Ultimate Fleeting Spark specifically involves Near. There was an issue before where if you were able to successfully counter Near's Ultimate Misfortune with the Ultimate Fleeting Spark, they would clash. Now it doesn't do that anymore, so Anre, if he's able to counter the Ultimate Misfortune, will be able to punish Near cleanly. It would be really hard to represent this bug otherwise, so we're just going to have to celebrate and say goodbye to Near for now. Now to start getting into some of the real meat with Anre here, we're going to be looking at some changes to arm the Bastion. First off, a very simple one. The stun frames when parrying have been increased. Let's take a look at how this used to behave. As you can see, you're plus 10 in this situation after a parry. So it looks like that Anre is recovering faster, and that would mean that you're able to get better punishes for it. However, my own bit of testing, there's not really a functional change happening here, as you are able to cancel out of this into normal attacks. We are plus 10 here, and our close heavy slash is an 11 frame startup normal. And the dummy is set to block. You can see here, we're able to still get this heavy punish slash after we successfully parry because we cancel before we're actually in that recovery state with Graham. So ultimately, I think it just means that Anre players will have more time to react to their successful parry to get their punish. Now it's time to get into some real meat with Arm the Bastion changes. The ground and advancing versions can now be cancelled into from normals. You'll note that he can't do this with the aerial version. There's a lot of implications to this change, the most universally applicable one being that now, during his block strings, Anre can at any moment go into Arm the Bastion to bait and counter and punish a Brave counter. This is pretty insane for Anre to be able to do, and I honestly wish that more characters could use tools unique to them to make callouts against Brave counter like this. For some other character-specific applications of this, we can take a look to Twitter with, I'm going to assume it's LLon Nui, or LLon Kim here that we see, showcasing what you can do with this counter now against a character like Vasaraga. Of course, in a real match, it's not going to quite be as simple as that one because Vasaraga can do a number of things there, but the fact that Anre can poke at Vasaraga's armor and safely parry pretty much most of the things that Vasaraga could try to do there is a game changer, to say the least. Advancing Arm the Bastion got a couple other changes as well to it. For starters, the travel speed has been adjusted, and it causes Anre to slide forward now. Additionally, there's now 9 more frames of whiff recovery as well, and the move will move forward on a successful parry. So this should make it a lot more reliable to use as an approach tool in neutral. We can compare that to its old behavior here. The air version of Arm the Bastion has 6 more parry frames now. Additionally, the stun frames and parrying have been increased, again, likely to give the Anre player more time to react to the situation. These are all crazy buffs overall for Arm the Bastion, and Anre is now the de facto parry god of Grand Blue Fantasy vs. Rising this patch. One Rift Spear Lunge, the forward U that Anre has in the air, has several buffs to it. For starters, the startup has been reduced from 24 frames to 19, making it a faster tool to move around in neutral overall. The hit stop on counter hit has also been increased by 4 frames, so now he's able to get a couple of easier links out of this. There's also several attributes that have been added when he cancels into this move from a successful parry in midair. The startup is then 6 frames, with the hit stop from the parry being 5. It's effectively a 1-frame startup, and it has invincibility until the last active frame. All these changes together means that Anre is an air-to-air god. There's plenty more to do after that hit as well, folks. Compare that to before, and it is a night and day difference. The dive version sees many of the same changes as well, with a couple of extras thrown in given its unique properties. The startup is down from 24 frames to 19. There's 4 more frames of hit stop on counter hit, and it has all the same new cancel properties from a successful parry that it does before. So, with all these in mind, we have to consider what trying to anti-air Anre now looks like. This conversion can be a little tricky to get down based on when all of these interactions happen together. Again, compare that to before. You still get a punish here, but there's a lot Grant could have done before in this situation as well to escape. Before, Anre would probably try and take these counter hits and prey on the opponent not being ready for them and go into normal attacks. A savvy opponent, though, can make a call out on this and deal with these jump-ins like so. In the current patch, the situation would still play out the same because of the landing recovery that you would get off of the dive from the spear. But the opponent has to have an invincible move in order to deal with this, or react with a spot dodge or something like that. Granted, the spot dodge is going to keep the opponent safe, but Anre will usually have an advantage after this interaction. And of course, suffice it to say, if the opponent had a cancel that wasn't invincible after this, then Anre is going to get a pretty reliable win in this situation. There is still some counterplay to this that we have to keep track of, but you're going to have to explore the matchups yourself and see what you can do against this option, because it is certainly an Anre-favored situation. The final changes to discuss to Anre are going to be to one of his supers, the 7 Spears of Lightning. First, let's take a look at this before. This basically gave him frame advantage on block, as well as let him link normal after normal into hit. It only would be triggered by the first hit of a medium attack or a heavy attack. As you can see, the opponent stays grounded. Pretty flat stuff overall. They also weren't too good against airborne opponents either. As you can see, it had some knockback to it, but it was a little hard to work with. Additionally, every instance that you would use a particular normal, like let's say close medium attack, you would get extra arrows to fire.
Great.
Let's get into how it behaves now. For starters, the arrows will now launch a grounded foe. The knockback has also been greatly adjusted to make it a lot more combo friendly. Let's take a look at that Anre combo, for example, that we had.
Great.
Definitely a lot more to play with here. Additionally, the projectiles will now track foes, making a lot more friendly in such aerial combos. The last change is actually pretty cool as well. Outside of medium attacks and heavy attacks, firing projectiles, you can also fire them now with Crouching U, which gives you some cool combos, as well as your One Rift Spears. Courtesy of Vuvho on Twitter, we can see some of the Anre buffs going down if in a combo like this. Pretty cool stuff. There's one last note on the super that we have to go over, and I think this is just some sort of translation error on behalf of the developers writing this out. It says no longer fires a projectile after the first attack of a combo. You would think that this implies then that when you run up and hit someone for the first time, the arrows don't fire, but we clearly see that they do. However, what I think it means is that you have to use different attacks to trigger these now. Watch what happens now when I use 2 close medium slashes in a combo.
Great.
Only the first one fires out an arrow. The second one did not. So, very weird translation error thing happening here, but maybe it's just to encourage more diversity in Anre's combos with this super. Going through these patch notes feels like opening a brand new box of Uno cards to play with here. Anre, or Uno, has tons of new changes that are honestly great for him. He's got better combo routes overall with various changes to all of his moves. His parries, both in terms of his 5U as well as his fleeting spark parries, have a lot more reward and functionality to them, really leaning into the identity of this character overall, while also giving his 7 Spears of Lightning super a little more utility to play with as well. I have to give a big shout out to Redeemer from Colorado, who is arguably our strongest player for the Grand Blue Fantasy versus scene. A big shout out with helping me going over some of the changes with Anre here and giving context to them as well. While I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of Anre overall because he's easily one of the least popular characters played in this version of the game, maybe some players that have had him as a side character will consider moving him around as a main character or something like that. It's fun to see him get a little more functionality to his core identity and get some much needed utility for his combo routes, especially from the mid-screen going into the corner. The fact that you can also cancel Arm the Bastion from normals has some insane implications, and I think that we're in for plenty of insane highlights with the character if he gets a chance to shine.